I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Organizing Committee of Ukraine House Davos today for the panel discussion called Stories from the Economic Front, Business and Financial Resilience in Wartime. Before I announce the moderator of this panel discussion, I would like to show the small video, please.
Ukraine is every one of us who defends economy. Ukraine is he who takes the responsibility. Those who don't consider all the risks. Ukraine is she who could have left. Those who save their people. Those who came back. Those who didn't go. Ukraine is he who earns nothing but respect. Those whose profit can be measured. She who works more to tax more. Those with an endless resource of bravery. Ukraine is they who are not waiting for better times. Those who provide their life to the country. And Ukraine is everyone who joins us.
Thank you. It is my great pleasure to announce the moderator of this panel discussion, Andy Hunder, the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine. As you all know, the American Chamber of Commerce is a great organization led by Andy and uniting the business. So the panel discussion will be really interesting about those who actually stayed in Ukraine and those who returned to Ukraine, and also some inspirational stories. Please, Andy, the floor is yours.
Very warm welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And we are delighted to be here this evening at Ukraine House here in Davos, on probably the most influential street in the world, where so many key decision makers are here present. And why are we here? We are here today to tell, really, as the panel name says, it's the stories. So we have the front, where Ukrainians, brave Ukrainians, lion-hearted Ukrainians are continuing to fight Russian aggression. And we have the economic front. And we will today hear stories of the realities of business and financial resilience in wartime. We woke up in Kyiv on the 24th of February, and the businesses then had to decide how to continue. So throughout the year, we've been conducting surveys, and some of the numbers I just want to share with you today. So out of the members of the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine, 72% of members are fully operational. 83% continue to pay full salaries. 22% of members have had their companies, plants or factories damaged. We've seen these companies, names that you all very well know, global names. In Hostomel, we had the Unilever factory that was destroyed. We had my favorite, it was the Oreo factory, the factory that made Oreos for most of Europe in Trostanets. This was the Mondelez factory, and when Trostanets was under occupation in the first month of the war, that's been destroyed. We have 16% of companies have had employees injured, and 15% of companies, so that works out 1 in 7, have had instances of employees killed during this brutal war. The numbers also that I want to focus on today are that 77% of chamber members believe the war will end in 2023. 12% believe it will be 24, and 98% of companies plan to continue operating in Ukraine in 2023. So today we have a real stellar panel that will tell the stories, and you will hear, both here and online, I welcome everyone who's watching us online, the stories of real resilience, business resilience, financial resilience during wartime. So I'm delighted to present our panel. Yulia Badratinova is General Manager at McDonald's in Ukraine, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. Max Leszko is CEO and board member of Parimatch. Ben Driggs, President of Global High Growth Regions of Honeywell. And Professor Alexander Rodnyansky, Professor at Cambridge University of Economics, and also advisor to the President of Ukraine. And I think also we'll be having an opportunity to hear from Alexander in some of his roles that he'll be looking at future, because Alexander is one of these people currently looking at focusing specifically on the recovery plan, and this is something working closely with the President Zelensky and his team. So I'll just add on that. So I think we can start. I think one of the stories, Yulia Badratinova, McDonald's. There's been some real resilience, phenomenal. I've seen it when during the war, especially when McDonald's reopened, you see the lines, the queues of people standing, and the belief in Ukraine. But I think there's a phenomenal story behind that. Yulia manages 17,000 people across the 3 markets, and I think it's the people. So Yulia, starting with you, tell us the story of the business resilience in wartime.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, everybody. I would like to start with a small video. It's actually, the quality of the video may be not that best, but this is the footage from our employees, and I would like you to see the journey first, and then I will comment them. To tell you the story of McDonald's resiliency, I would focus on 3 words, which is people, agility, and complexity. And that's like common words in every business, and every leader know these words, but they mean completely different now. And I would start from people, definitely. So people were always in the heart of McDonald's business. We were always built all our decisions based on values and on people. But when the war started, so it became incrementally important for us. So I would say that, first of all, when the war started, we closed the restaurant immediately. It's 10,000 people. We tried to understand where they are, if they are safe. Then we understand that we should support them. So we supported them with salaries, we continued paying salaries to all people, we continued medical insurance, we helped them out. If people moved across the border, McDonald's across the border helped them there to employ or just help with any other things. And at the end, which was also very important, so a lot of people were without work, but they were volunteering. So we realized that maybe we should also help them to maximize their wish to help Ukrainians. And we established a couple of programs together with Ronald McDonald's House Charities, where we are the founding partner. And we produced the food kits. We are producing them even today. Even people get back to work, but they continue participating in all these programs and volunteer. So people is in the heart. People is the most focused. We were always thinking about their safety, and we will continue thinking about them. Not only our employees, but also customers. And then we are coming to agility. And if we speak about agility in a normal life, definitely all of us started to think about this like some time ago, how to make it faster, how to make it different. But now, every single day, our employees in McDonald's are making some decisions based on values, but they should make all these decisions very fast. And I would say around our agility, first point is on logistics and supply chain. Our supply chain is very resilient across the globe, but definitely logistics is a key. What was not normal, and roads was not normal, border was not normal. So every day we created new ways how to deliver products and how to ensure that everything in place. So currently we are operating 64 restaurants in Ukraine, in 14 cities. And definitely we will continue reopening restaurants. The question that it will need some incremental efforts also around logistics, because if you go a little bit, move into the east or south, it's a little bit more complex for us. The second part of the agility is around our operations and procedures. That was in the heart when we started to reopen. As some of you may remember that we started from delivery, because that's the way how we wanted to test all the protocols are working, they're in place, and we wanted to test it first with our employees, and then to see how it will work with customers as well. Because we know that the McDonald's in Ukraine is a very trusted brand. And I know that if people come into McDonald's, they trust that we will do everything right, and not only the quality of food, not only experience they will have, but also safety, because they trust that we will care, and we are. So, and complexity. So McDonald's is a complex business, and we are always working on the simplification. But these days, it's a very complex business. It's the protocol of evacuation that you saw in the video, it takes 10 minutes. In fact, they managed to do this by 7 minutes. So during these 7 minutes, McDonald's is a small plant. So actually, you should stop operating. You should finish with the orders which was paid. You should take care about customers. You should take care about kitchen. You should close the restaurant. You should evacuate people. So this protocol, 10 minutes. Reality, 7 minutes. So people are doing amazing things, and that's all about people and their commitment. And by the way, customers are doing exactly, they are helping out. I think that they never complain. They complain much less than before the war. They are supportive, and they understand that this is the only way how we can operate and how we can stay open, and we are all in this together. But if we say, like the reopening is taking also like 30 minutes, it can be much faster, depending on the restaurant. But people are improving every day, so it takes less and less. And at the same time, the quality is exactly the same. So the one thing we never compromised. And if I think about future, and if I think about even today, we continue to reopen restaurants, we continue investing. So we opened 3 new restaurants in October and November during the war. We opened 1 restaurant in Lviv, and we opened 2 restaurants in Kiev. We reconstructed Bucha restaurant, and we reopened it because it was completely burned during all the clashes there inside. So together with our partner, we reconstructed, and it operates because we know that the community needs us, and why we restarted business. And even though some of you may say that it took us a little bit to think, it took us long, because everybody was calling me saying that when let's reopen. But we had to be sure that this 10 minutes of evacuation will work, that we have shelters everywhere, that everything will work, because we cannot compromise on safety, we cannot compromise on quality, we cannot compromise on, because it's McDonald's. So just to finish with some future, once again, I cannot say that we will invest and we believe in the future, because we are doing now. We are doing now, and we will continue. And I think the story of McDonald's resiliency is story of McDonald's system resiliency, which is definitely no doubts, but it's also about Ukrainian employees, people, and customers. So I think that just because our people are great and committed, and we have that great system in place, we can do this, and we will continue supporting and believe in Ukraine. And me personally, I am a big advocate of Ukraine, and always will be. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Yulia, for your leadership and inspiration, and thank you to McDonald's. We were just discussing just now with Serhiy Leshchenko, I can't see if he's here, the fact that you can buy a fillet of fish in the restaurants across Ukraine. You can't across many European countries, and I think so even in the menu. But I think if we can. Professor Rodnyansky, if I can turn to you in your capacity, I mean, you have a very sort of long resume here, but I want to address the question in your capacity as a member of the supervisory board of the State Savings Bank of Ukraine. I remember in January, in February of 2022, we were preparing, or we were being told to prepare contingency plans. And one of the things on contingency plans was to have cash, have hryvnia and have dollars, because the banks will not be working. But we've seen quite phenomenal, the banks are working. Tell us the story about the banks.
Yes, absolutely. So thanks for mentioning that as exactly something that I wanted to allude to. So let's start from the big picture, how our Shetbank's been functioning. This is the State Savings Bank of Ukraine. I've been on the supervisory board for the last 2 years, and before the full-scale invasion, we had a very clear mandate. We were preparing the bank for privatization, like other state-owned banks in Ukraine. We have a very state-dominated banking sector. More than 50% by assets are basically owned by the state. Now it's actually getting even more, but let me leave that sort of aside. The target was, of course, to reach 25% within some years. Now, ever since the full-scale invasion, the strategy has changed. On early May, the government has actually explicitly told us we're there to make sure that we have enough liquidity to function, and we're there to make sure that critically important infrastructure and enterprises can also get the loans if they need to, right? So agriculture, military complex, other enterprises that are very critical right now and have suffered during the war, they need to be financed. So that's kind of our mandate for now during the full-scale invasion and the ongoing war. And what has that meant in terms of the numbers? So let me just give you a few insights. If we look at net profit as a very basic measure, over the 11 months of the war in last year, we've actually had positive net profit. It was about 1.6 billion hryvnia. Now, how did that come about? So first of all, there were losses. If we look at the provisioning the provisions that we have to make for the worsening quality of the loans and the loan book. Now, of course, that's happening because enterprises are losing out, companies are getting destroyed, so we have to account for that. But on the other hand, we actually had a financial hedge on our balance sheet since the early crisis in 2015. We've had indexed, currency indexed bonds on our balance sheet, and that has actually, due to the hryvnia devaluation, that has actually helped us. So there was quite a bit of temptation to get rid of these bonds over the years, but thanks God we didn't, and it really helped us during the crisis right now, during the war. And the third component is that we actually have still, pretty good, around 7 billion positive operating income. And how did that come about during the war? So what's interesting about that is that if we look at certain loan segments on our books, then we actually see that in particular in the small to medium enterprises, we've actually had very robust growth during the war. And you can kind of zoom into that, but the number is we've given out about 10.8 billion new hryvnia loans during the war, just during the war, the full-scale invasion. Now, a lot of that is actually working capital loans that agricultural companies come to us and ask for. And again, if you zoom into that, you see that a lot of it has to do with relocation. It shows you, it was really testimony to the resilience of the economy. And, it actually kind of tells you a whole story about what's underneath, right? What's under the cover and how the economy keeps functioning. So that's something that's, really a really strong sign of health, I think, and speaks volumes. Now, another interesting facet is kind of on our liability side. We've seen that deposits have actually grown. hryvnia deposits have grown. Now, again, there's two kind of reasons for that. Number one is, it does speak to the quality of our bank. People trust our bank. Obviously, testimony to the trust in the banking sector overall. And we have been well capitalized since, again, the early reforms in 2015 and so on. We are properly governed. We have supervisory boards, etc. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, of course, it has to do with the military spending, and that a lot of the military personnel actually have accounts in our bank and in other banks as well. And so then they're getting more income, they're obviously getting their salaries, so that's being reflected on the deposit side. So overall, kind of in terms of the big financial picture of our balance sheet, we actually look surprisingly healthy. And I think some of the other state-owned banks are actually in a similar position, despite everything that's been going on. Now, when we turn to sort of the micro stories that are actually kind of the moving part, what has happened since February 24th? Well, I can tell you one story. We've had to make sure that our cash in transit is still functioning, like you said. So going back to what you mentioned, we need to make sure that the ATMs are working. Now, obviously, with the invasion to the north of Kiev, Chernihiv, for example, was almost surrounded early in the war, and we've had only one branch operating there. And so, we've had to transport cash through forests sometimes, with our personnel risking their lives because all the other routes were basically blocked and occupied, right? We've had, because of the blown up bridges, we've had some of the local management use rubber boats to transport cash to the ATMs. I mean, these are actual stories. Yeah. And I'll say kind of a third example that I'll conclude with is, of course, Kherson. So Kherson was infiltrated very early on. February 25th, there's already Russian troops in Kherson. That was by far the most difficult part. Now, we kept operating in Kherson for 80 days during the occupation. And then we had to stop when the Russian forces actually arrived and at gunpoint said they're going to take over the banks. And what they did is they turned it into some local other bank that they wanted to have. Now, and I actually went with our team, we went to Kherson 5 days after the liberation, and we opened the first branches, and we saw the huge queues, the people coming for cash, and actually some of them depositing their cash, despite the fact that there was no electricity, no water, nothing working in Kherson, because everything was blown up on the retreat, everything. So, that again speaks volumes about the resilience of the people, and we actually got an award from the Central Bank, the National Bank of Ukraine, for being the first to open our branches again in Kherson. So that's kind of the short story. We do have losses, of course. A lot of the losses are still estimates. We don't know exactly how much we've lost. There's still more to come on our books because the loan quality is going to deteriorate. But we're going to stick through like everybody else.
Well, fantastic. I think that's truly. I know that some banks actually, the armored vehicles that they had to transfer or transport cash, some were given up to the military because they were armored. but still, the stories that you go to the ATMs, and even in small little towns, you go there and there's cash available, and the way the whole digital system works. Here in Zurich, here in Davos, people with Ukrainian cards can just use their cards as if there's no issues. I think there's a lot. So very, very grateful for that. So moving on, I think let's cover other sectors. I mean, Ben Driggs, I mean, you're president of Global Higher Growth Regions at Honeywell. Honeywell, so many sectors. I'm just trying to think which one to start for. Maybe, tell us, some of the sectors that Honeywell is working in Ukraine at the moment, and some of the sectors you're looking at already for future.
Yeah. Well, I'm very humbled to be here, and I know many of the other companies on the panel and many in this room have much larger operations in the Ukraine than Honeywell does, and so I'm humbled to be here and tell a little bit of our story. We have a team of 56 people in Ukraine. What we primarily do is provide control systems to the energy industry. So it's controlling pipelines, controlling other energy assets, and then also control systems and automation systems in building, as well as some aerospace work in some other areas. And our employees really deserve a ton of credit for what they have done. Again, small team, 56 people. I know many other people have done much larger organizations, but they were able to continue to support these critical control systems on different sets of infrastructure. And we had great response by the Honeywell families in the neighboring countries that welcomed the family members of our Ukrainian employees. So we had about 30 Honeywell families accepting refugees, primarily the family members of Honeywell employees in Ukraine and others. And then our team that was able to not supporting the military efforts or others, could support the control infrastructure that existed. And what we've seen since sort of the initial stabilization and getting spare parts and getting other things in is some new areas started to come about. So we signed an MOU with the National Defense Company in Ukraine. We're a major aerospace player, and we're able to sign the MOU and do some work in that space. Also, the issue of how do we plan the future energy infrastructure to have the right controls and automation systems to be more resilient, and that planning has started and underway with our customers in the Ukraine. And then another major topic that we've been exploring and has come up is the issue of battery energy storage. Of course, as you think about electricity and getting electricity from many different sources, having the energy storage, and then where Honeywell really adds value is to have the control system that can plug into the grid very effectively in order to use that storage and to manage it from different sources. And so there's been a lot of work and conversations going on around battery energy storage and what can happen in the future. And it's really been humbling to me to see our small team and how they've been able to continue to support the existing infrastructure, and then how conversations in some of these new areas have started to happen, which will be critical for the rebuilding and the future of the Ukraine. So that'll be a couple thoughts.
Super. Thank you, Ben. And yeah, I think the electricity situation, many of you know that there are regular blackouts across major cities in Ukraine. And only over the last couple of months, Ukrainians have imported more than 340,000 generators. So whenever you are out on the street, you hear this constant noise of generators. But I think that the battery storage, those are just critical to once you generate the electricity, also to be able to store it. But Max Leshko, CEO and board member of Paris Match. If I can bring you in, I mean, Paris Match, anybody who watches sports, knows this is an international sports betting major created in Ukraine so much, and the support you give. Tell us about some of the support you've been given, and again, being a media partner here in Davos, tell us about some of the support that Paris Match is giving.
Yes, good evening to everybody. Nice to be here and share a story. And in general, before the resilience, and of course I will share a story about our financial and business resilience, but before this, in February and previous year, after the full-scale invasion, we started thinking how to how to recover our operations, how to find out where's our employees, etc., etc. We born in Ukraine 20 years ago, and we operate in 10 more countries and 4 regions, but still our heart in Ukraine, and it was in Ukraine every time. On the 24th of February, there was 2,500 employees in Ukraine, mainly in Kyiv. It was like IT guys, our mathematics, analytics, and some engineers. Everyone was there, and of course, for first several days, I think that I cannot say that we lose our operations, but we was completely frozen because in our business, each employee is very important because he need to do something with our system, and without that, it's cannot work. But now I already know all statistics for that period, and our customers in Ukraine was in the same mode, let's say, because for first 7 days, 10 days, all our metrics was near to zero. So no one do not want nothing about sports and entertainment at all. So everyone was busy with the security problem, with find relatives, and what to do in general. And as a company, we was in the same mode. But then, step by step, we start to recover. We find out where's our employees. And first steps was just to separate between us, between top managers, but mainly also was in Kyiv at that period of time, to find out where is our employees, to find out if they with the laptops, if they have an access to internet, if they with working phones, etc., etc. Because before we organized everything in such way that everything was in Kyiv, and even if there's some operation with our software in Africa or in Brazil, still our Kyiv office was had a full control, let's say, on these operations. And to recover all this, we start to split all our employees by small teams. And it was very effective and still effective. I speak with other companies in Ukraine. So everyone who start to separate and gives a lot of powerful to the teams, they bring amazing stuff. As Yulia said and other colleagues said, people did and still doing amazing things. So they organize by themselves. They know what to do even better than top management, because they are on some place and they see how it's better to organize, how it's better to communicate with different countries, with our counterparties, how to explain. Because to operate with our business, for now we have more than 10,000 counterparties to bring all data to our system and then give it back when we modified it. So it's quite complicated business, and people, our employees, they recover the business during the 2-3 weeks, let's say. So they created by this small team, and I think that one of the important things to recover and for current resilience and financial and business. And I can say that if you will give this powerful to your employees in Ukraine, if you will split it by the small tips and give us freedom for the operation, it will give us success. People are amazing, and what I believe it's for all Ukrainians right now, that our values changes dramatically. So, and for now there is no strict line between the let's say business obligations or employee obligations, salaries, taxes, companies, or your own company, and etc. So now it's like a one big lake, let's say. So everyone in this, and everyone will try to help each other. And for now, we know that inside our company, for example, in 2021, when we asked what is the main motivation for you, it was like new products, new possibilities, salary, or something like this. Now 95% says that we want to recover our country, we want to pay tax, we want to help to our army. So this is the main values. And of course you need to communicate with the company which is in Ukraine in this way, because there is that values which is important for them right now. and it brings this resilience for your business and for your finance. And of course, our counterparties, they help us a lot. First weeks we called to everyone and said that we cannot pay our financial obligations, even which was through January and February. We cannot because our banking system frozen as we are. So we don't know if we can collect these amounts or not. And it was honestly surprised. Our counterparty said that, of course, don't worry about this for next 2 months. We will discuss it later. But how we can help to you, and our first invoices, which we help to our army and to our embassies in different countries, which try to help also to our army and bought something. We pay through our partners, so they paid with our names. Of course. Then in 2-3 weeks we already had a possibility to pay for ourselves, and starts from that period of time we spent more than $12 million to help our army. Our partners spent millions to help with this. We also one of the partners for United 24 and also help for now it's like 3 million. So we try to help, and for our employees it's very important. For our customers it's very important. We communicate it weekly, and we feel that it's very important for all of us. So this stuff unite us and give us that possibility to work and to continue our operations, not only in Ukraine, in other countries.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think for that, I think the generosity of business in terms of financially supporting both the humanitarian drive, supporting those employees who are on the front line, supporting Ukraine's army, what you were saying, what you do, supporting United 24 and other funds, the US Chamber of Commerce Foundation, the latest number has been over $1.06 billion that companies have donated to Ukraine, to the humanitarian drive. So we see that the businesses have been very generous in terms of not only paying full salaries, 83% paying full salaries, but also giving to the humanitarian support. But I just want to pick up on the point, Max, that you raised about people. So, we hear the sounds in the video, we hear the sounds of the air raid sirens, we hear the sounds of the generators, we hear the sounds of bombs over hitting cities. But still, you phone up a bank and there's a person at the end of the phone and you can see that person is there to serve. You go to McDonald's and the person with a smile is welcoming you to the McDonald's. My question is, how do you, as leaders, motivate and manage people during war? Anybody wants to go first?
I can start. So I think that it's a great question, because I feel that we just need to do right things, because people do not need motivation right now. They are very motivated to work. They just appreciate that they can be helpful right now, because they do see that it's not just about work now, it's just about serving communities, serving each other, being there for each other and for communities. And you saw that people are spending time together, even in bomb shelters. They are just not isolated, they are in a team, they're learning something new. So that's how they keep this normality for themselves and for people around. And that's something that motivates all of us, I think.
Okay, Alex?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can speak for myself as a member of the supervisory board. I mean, we're very lucky to have a great management team working in close tandem and really in a great spirit. We went, as I said, to many cities. We went to Kharkiv when it was still at the front lines to visit some of our branches over there that were actually actively bombed and shelled, and they were in the range of artillery, of the Russian artillery back then, just to see how our people are doing, because we feel like, we lead by example. If we go there, we have to go there because they are there all the time. And so, like you said, I mean, there's really not much of a secret to it. We do right things, we lead by example, and we're always there. So we think that's kind of one of the key elements. And otherwise, we are obviously trying to stabilize the bank for us and reach our objectives when it comes to the strategy.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah. Can add that what is also help us to motivate people and us and even our colleagues abroad, which helps a lot also to all Ukrainians. When we separate our teams, as I said, when we split it, we find out that we have a lot small businesses inside our companies, and before we have 500 plus IT specialists in our company, software development, and we create all software for us by ourselves, not only for betting, for CRM systems, for payments, for compliance, for everything, and we use it on before the full-scale invasion. We use it only for us, in thought that there is our unique sales proposition, let's say, and never thinking about other type of the business with this software. But when we separate the teams, we find out that, and also with their ideas, that we can sell this software to other companies, even to our competitors, and what? So they will have the same software, they will have the same mobile applications, and what? So, but for us, it's an additional stream of profit, and we start to do this. And on some stage, it was during the August, we announced in our company that we together with our B2C business, we start a new B2B business inside our company, and we keep all our employees for this, and even hire a new one in Ukraine, which have an experience in B2B. And this new wave of cooperation inside our company, this split and burning of new businesses motivated a lot, and still in process. So I believe that this fact will help us a lot, and there's also like one of the key factor. If you will find a way what's new you can add to your Ukrainian business, how you can grow it, it will motivate your people amazing.
The only thing I would add, and I think all the comments are spot on, the employees are so motivated, but just give them the tools to be able to do their job, trying to get them access to the technical experts outside, trying to do little things like that just to enable so that they can do the things that they need to do is really, I think, the responsibility that fell on our management team in the region and for Honeywell globally. The other item, I mean, little things, we advanced salary and paid up front right after the invasion to give several months' salary early. Little things like that, I think people felt helped. And then doing, making sure, and again, we have a small team, this is only 56 people, but we would do monthly calls with the leadership team in the region. And then early on, they would do daily phone trees to make sure we knew where every employee was and what they were doing and other things, and little things of that nature. And then as it continued on, just giving them the tools so that they could do the work that they needed to do. That no other motivation required except enabling it.
Okay. We have time, so I'm delighted to open up to the floor to Q&A. So any questions, please raise your hands, and we have a roving microphone in the room, so please do feel free to ask any questions you have. I think in terms of, I think looking forward, and it's, Alexander, I mean, especially to you, because you are advisor to President Zelensky. So you've taken some time off now from the University of Cambridge as a professor. So you are now advising President Zelensky, and I understand you'll be President Zelensky's envoy on recovery and reconstruction, designated to lead the future reconstruction modernization agency. In Davos, where the world's global business leaders, global politicians are, what is your message to them?
Yeah, so let me just comment on that. When it comes to the recovery and reconstruction efforts, we did, in fact, organize a big conference on that in Berlin in late October, October 25th, which I co-organized on the Ukrainian side, together with Scholz and his team on the German side. And there we did announce, and it is true, that the president asked me to lead that process going forward, but we haven't established these institutions yet. There's no agency yet. We do have a vice prime minister who's responsible for the infrastructural part. So that's still in the making, yeah. So that's a bit too early to comment on, but yes, we'll be talking and working on that going forward. What messages do we have for Davos? I mean, it doesn't really change much. I always say we're in the wartime economy. So in the wartime economy, the primary form of economic stimulus, perversely enough, are weapons and air defense systems. And you don't have to go very far to understand that. If we had real 100% bulletproof, watertight air defense systems, our energy infrastructure would be intact, and the economy would be functioning much better, and we wouldn't have this GDP collapse that we're having. right now. So that's just illustration. And perversely enough, all the other things that are important for the long run and will remain important, property rights, judicial reforms, etc., strengthening of our institutions, etc., all these things, openness and so on, they're going to become primary again after the wartime economy is over. So our message is, look, we need the maximum support that we can get, because this looks like it's going to last. Because we're dealing with something, and we have to be very clear about this, we're dealing with a side that doesn't have the pain threshold that we all hope it would have. They don't care whether they have 100,000 dead, 200,000 dead, or even 300,000 dead. I mean, let's be perfectly clear about this. So economic forms of pressure are good, like sanctions, and I'm part of the sanctions group, actually, so we've been working on that throughout. But they don't seem to bite that much. I mean, we have to be very clear about this. And what will bite is military force and a very clear defeat of the Russian side. That's going to put their system out of balance, and that's what we need. So that's unfortunately both economically important and militarily, of course.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Any? I can't see any hands. Yes, please. There's a microphone, so please just introduce yourself. I don't know. Do we have translation? If I'll translate. Okay.
У нас є переклад. So I'm going to make an introduction, and then I'm Metro Gostuk, and I'm an MP. We are discussing McDonald's and in particular the development of the network. So we've come from Ukraine, and over these months of the war, 11 months of the war, of the all-out war in Ukraine, we have got accustomed to it, however terrible it might sound. And when we hear the air raid siren, we know that we have to rush to the shelter. And slowly but steadily, you come to understand that we have to accept this reality of our life, and we have to think about further development. When we were coming here, we saw that there is a practice of McDonald's, Burger King, and other chain brands opened at a gas station. For Ukrainians, gas stations have become very special. We've never valued and treasured the networks of gas stations because first there was shortage of gas and petrol, and now they have got generators and light and warmth. So it would be wonderful if McDonald's could also open up some points of support and gas stations, and that would be a good example of how the chain of cafes and restaurants could be represented in Ukraine.
The comment or proposal to McDonald's, especially now, whereas gas stations or petrol stations in Ukraine are becoming a place where many people do convene for either to charge phones or to fill up their cans for the generators or their cars, their automobiles. So the question to McDonald's, when will we be eating fish smacks at a petrol station?
So the question was very long. The answer is very short. Just follow our Instagram.
There you go.
No, but seriously, this is the part of the strategy all over the world. Ukraine is very big, its territory is very big, and we will have all our territories, and we will definitely expand. And usually the strategy is you are starting from the cities and then you expand. And if you look through the Poland, for instance, which is 500 restaurants, it's everywhere now. It's coming, and it was in the strategy. It is in the strategy, and we will move forward. The question that we will move forward as soon as and where it's possible now.
Thank you. Any other questions from the room? Yes, please.
Hello, Catherine Valinga, CEO of Zirkova Vodka, Canadian and board member of Canada-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce. So my question is for you, Andy, because you and your team have done a terrific job with AmCham. And tell us about your resiliency and tell us about the organization and are there opportunities for members from countries that are perhaps not in business yet that we could come and join and be part of this as we look at entering the country? Like, could there be more outreach? Are you looking at that?
Thank you for the question. I think we are blessed because we have a very strong board. So we as the executive team, we are the largest AmCham team in all of Europe. We have now 37 employees full-time. So this is the largest in Europe. But our board, we work very closely with our board. Our board guides us. And I think in February, we started preparing. And I think, we had, on the 2nd of February, we paid salaries on the 2nd of February. So this was 3 weeks before the actual full incursion. We paid salaries in advance, we gave additional finances, and we had a free-to-go policy. So that anybody who wants to leave Ukraine is free to do so. Out of then 37 people, one person left. People stayed, and so we still continue to serve our members. But I think we are encouraged by companies, that they inspire us. And our job is the three things we do, the B2G, being the business to government, the B2B, being a platform where companies can meet others, which will have a reception right after this, where this will be an opportunity to meet new partners, new customers, new opportunities. And also what we do B2U. So the question on the B2U, the business to Ukraine, we work very closely with the US Chamber in Washington, across the road from the White House. Probably the most powerful business association in the world. We are working on some ideas as we speak, and we hope to announce those pretty soon. So we have, the big global corporations that are in the hall in Davos, and we are finding ways of communicating to them and saying, now is the time to look at Ukraine. We have our network of AmChams across Europe, 42 countries that we do with. And I think, Ukraine now, I think it was on the panel with the First Lady and Bishop Boris Guzak yesterday and the editor of, Zami, the editor of The Economist. And I think, she said now, Ukraine is so cool that people want to be a part of it. And that's what we want to get that message across. And now is the time to be part of something historic. The biggest recovery, reconstruction, rebuilding of a nation since World War II. And that's what we do. But we are lucky because we have fantastic companies that we work together with. And we have great friends. And we know a friend in need is a friend indeed. And that's what we have, these companies and our chambers across in the US and across Europe that we work together with. So there's a part two. Okay.
Okay. So the part two is for you, Alexander. So and perhaps Yulia. So we see all of the companies that have left Russia or have not chosen to leave Russia through the Yale and all of the pressure to leave. What has happened? Have those companies come into Ukraine? Are they going to come into Ukraine? We see exodus, but are we seeing incoming for Ukraine, and what does that mean?
Yes, good question. I mean, we have certainly a lot of statements by some of these companies that have left Russia that they want to enter the Ukrainian market. I don't have the latest figures to give you who's done what, unfortunately. Yeah, but it's not too good. The record is not too good. Obviously, people are still afraid. These companies are still sort of afraid to really invest into Ukraine. We are here in Davos actually speaking to a lot of parties, a lot of financial companies, big conglomerates, some industrials, about potentially, having a relationship with us, investing into Ukraine. And they're all excited, but they haven't really acted upon what they're saying yet. So we're working on it, but ultimately, look, we need to make sure that war risks are taken care of. We're still in the early stages of setting up some mechanism. Right now, we have a mechanism through the World Bank, but it's really minuscule. It's 25 million so far. We could scale it up, but we're still in the early stages. And ultimately, we need to make sure that this uncertainty is gone, and it's going to be gone after we win. So there isn't much we can do besides trying and creating other mechanisms.
Yes, I see a question.
Thank you. My name is Lydia Nadich-Petrenko. I used to be co-chair of the HR committee of AmCham a bit over a decade ago. And I have an HR-related question. So now it's more than 7 million people who left Ukraine. We don't know which percentage of them will stay, which percentage of them will return. We don't know how many people we've lost during the war. And the question is about upgrading the ones who are in Ukraine and who will need to rebuild the country. Do you consider any educational initiatives like on the cross-company level that will give business skills, business understanding to those people who left in Ukraine? Because I think everyone who spoke the language probably they have had more chances to leave and stay somewhere as refugees, while those who had a bit less access to the languages, technology, and business practices, they are staying. So maybe it's a good opportunity to unite the efforts of the big corporations and share the experience in different functional areas with those people so that they can become a talent pool.
So so if the question is about those people who are outside of Ukraine or inside of
Outside.
Inside. Yes.
Both.
Okay. I can comment on our people because majority of our employees are working in the restaurants doesn't speak language sometimes, but when they come to other country and they are ready to be employed, McDonald's is helping them to be employed in a short procedure and helping with some other things. And I don't know if we are now testing a lot of things. So actually we are testing the systems, we are testing business, but we are also testing ourselves. So it looks like our people can learn the language very fast. So that's something that I've heard from military people that say that if American people are coming and teach them something, they can speak language very fast. And it's not only about Polish, which is a little bit more similar, or Czech, which is a little bit more similar. I think that it's about our talent as well. And coming back to the question of the investments, what can be, I think, what is amazing now and why people should invest to Ukraine, those who are not investing yet. Because we who are operating in Ukraine, we are proven that Ukrainians are reliable. Ukrainians can be very resilient. But they will never compromise because the corporate standards are important and they will never betray corporate standards. They will be reliable and at the same time corporate. So that's something that we show. And if we speak about the learnings, imagine after 7 months, like it's a young people, so they didn't work. And even to restart operations in McDonald's, we had to retrain them. And that's what we did. So we have a special programs to retrain people and to add these new skills. And we are working with PTSD programs and we are working with some psychological programs. We are putting everything in place for our people because I think that if people will remain resilient and if they will continue to believe in what they are doing and with the right purpose, that's the way how we will win everything, not just the business, but also the war.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on that. I will throw an idea and you will decide if it's worth developing. So what we've done more than a decade ago, we've created a university for HR when representatives of different companies were just giving one lecture to the students on their topic. And then it was like 10 companies involved and everyone taught something. So maybe now it's a time for the businesses to go beyond your own employees, but to look at the country and to give one topic per company and then you educate people who are not your employees, who are outside of your companies, and that will help the country to upgrade as well.
I agree. I think the companies, but not only the companies. I just saw that was here from Forbes, and Forbes Ukraine, there was a very interesting article on Forbes Ukraine yesterday. It was a video on YouTube, and it got over 1.5 million views in the first 2 days, I think. But it wasn't from a business leader, it was from a Ukrainian young military commander. And he was saying how he motivates his team. It was one, have a look on the Forbes UA website, and I actually watched that. It's truly inspirational, how you sort of motivate people coming into the army. But I think it's learning from all. So I think, the learning you say, I absolutely agree. I think we have time for one final question right at the back there. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Hassan Bashar. I represent an industrial group from city of Dnipro. Before the war, we employed about 1,500 people. We're a Turkish-Ukrainian joint venture, and we invest in factories in Ukraine. And I must say, Ukrainian colleagues have been stellar throughout the 20 years that I've worked with them. And what I'm really worried about is, what the market is going to be like in terms of size and labor after the war. This is critical. We had, the first war in 2014. The economy shrank, but it's very resilient. It picked up, but I'm really worried about the lack of labor. Will people come back? And what kind of a future we want to build later on for Ukraine? Do we want to turn it into a production base, or do we want to? So these are things that as an investor, as an active investor, that I'm thinking about, and I want to see Ukraine shine at its potential. So I don't want to see it, in a deteriorating state after the war. So I would like to hear your comments on that.
Thank you. Max?
I can comment this from business perspective of view, and then I believe that Alexander will add from government perspective of view. But today there was several panel here about the potential future, and I believe that, for example, in our case, and combined also with the previous questions, for example, we invest, this is like social investments, we invest in to relocate it, one of the school which was destroyed in Ukraine to abroad to Cyprus, together with the teachers, with everything. And for now there is like 300 plus kids from Ukraine there. And education, there is combination Ukrainian and English languages, and we prepare these families and these kids to be ready to return to Ukraine and continue to educate it in Ukrainian language. And my kids also in that school, for example. And the biggest part of our employees, and not only our employees, there was a big amount of refugees which are there using this school and also kindergarten. And now we start to do the same in Poland, and I know other company which do it in Portugal, in other countries. So I believe that business prepare everything to be ready to going back with all employees and their families to Ukraine, and there will be a huge market. And but together with this, I think that's a very important thing, and how our friendly countries will thinking about Ukraine, as they will be ready to support their local business to starting something in Ukraine, how our government will support this. And before the war, we have a special law, it calls like investment nanny, to help business growing in Ukraine. But now we will need something extraordinary to help all international companies to start and then support this business in Ukraine. And I saw an article, I believe it was like early January, that Office of President of Ukraine announced that this 2023 will the year of the changing, and how I understand it was liberalization of the tax. Maybe some new legislation will come, and this legislation will show the way for all international companies how to start the business in Ukraine and have it successfully.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I wouldn't be too pessimistic going forward, conditional on us winning the war soon. So that's how I would put it. Conditional on us winning the war, I'm actually very optimistic. We're going to have the EU as an anchor, right? We're already having the candidacy status. So now reform is going to happen much more quickly when it comes to the institutional transformations, potentially some more deregulation. Our tax code is actually not too bad. We need to simplify it, but our rates aren't actually all that high. That's a separate discussion. So I wouldn't be too pessimistic. The big issue, of course, is what's going on right now. And of course, then the other issue that you mentioned, which is legitimate, is how do we get all these people back? And I've actually been... That is more complicated, I agree, because I've recently seen the first big study that came out in Germany on this, when they've polled all the refugees or all the Ukrainians that are now living there and fled from the war, and what we saw is that 26% apparently say that they want to remain permanently, forever. Now that really discouraged me, to be honest. I was very upset when I saw that. And we need to think about how to deal with it. We need to create some sort of incentive schemes, work with our partners to make sure we preserve the ties of these people, that they don't lose the ties to Ukraine. But again, the main issue is the longer this drags on for, the harder it's going to be. That's all.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Well, we're running out of time now, and I invite everybody to stay for the business networking reception. The organizers will just need like 10, 15 minutes to set up the tables here, but please do stay. But on a final wrap-up, yes, so if I would ask each of the panel for a 30-second wrap-up. I think we've seen the resilience. It's phenomenal. What your people are doing during war is truly amazing. How and what... We're in Davos, where the business, the world's elite of the politicians, but I'm going to focus more on the business leaders. So if we walk down, we meet these business leaders that are going to be here either later or you see them throughout the days in Davos, each one of you, what would your 30-second elevator pitch be to them on Ukraine? Who wants to go first?
Oh, I can start. We have such kind of questions during the Web Summit. There was a panel with Klitschko, and in Lisbon, and we asked all businessmen there. It was like IT forum to prolong all contracts with Ukrainian companies, because as you see, of course, there is a risk department, there is a security department, analytics department, which said to you there is near to possible to continue any contractorship relationship with Ukrainian companies, especially in the IT sector or in online, on some factories. But before, after that period when full invasion started, and for now, do they deliver everything to you? And as usual, answer is yes. Maybe with some delay, but yes. And just believe in this. It's like one of your moral aspects to continue to operate with them, to help them, and just believe they will deliver.
Brilliant. Ben?
The human capital. I mean, it's been stated. Amazing human capital, amazing history of delivery, amazing resilience. We see that in our employees. We see that in our suppliers. We see that in our customers. And I think that's the argument. And it's a generational opportunity to rebuild. I mean, this is a tremendous opportunity, and I think that's the simple value proposition.
Julia?
I would say that we are fighters. Ukrainians are fighters historically. My team is fighters. I like those. I like them before the war, because they fight for every efficiency. They are fighting for every optimization in the business. So it's everywhere. If you are a fighter in your heart, you are a fighter everywhere, and it will be profitable. It will be fast. It will be great. So that would be my elevator speech.
Thank you. Alexander?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo most of what was said. I mean, this is a great opportunity in Davos to really reduce the information asymmetries about Ukraine and between Ukraine and the other investors potentially. So, look, a country that's so effective in defense is going to be effective economically. That's what I would say, echoing much of what was just mentioned. So we're going to be successful in reform after the war as well. Many of the hurdles that were existent before the war are going to be gone. There's not going to be any more Russian influence, sabotage, etc. So it's going to be much more easy, and we're going to have the EU as an anchor. And we're going to start from a very low base. So there's plenty of opportunity.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Please join me in thanking our really stellar panel. So Alexander Rudnyansky, Ben Driggs, Honeywell, Max Leshko, Perry Match, and Yulia Badratinova, McDonald's. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your inspiration, and we believe in the future of Ukraine, and we are in this together. And ladies and gentlemen, I invite you all to the reception, which will take place here in 15 minutes once all the tables are set up. So thank you, and Slava Ukraini!
Слава!